On today's PMEA's Take Note podcast, we are talking to a Pennsylvania music education major who was also a drum major on this year's Drum Corps International Summer Tour. All on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. Really interesting one here for you today. You know, on the podcast, we talk a good bit about the marching arts, and we did that especially this summer. We wanted to personalize it a little bit by talking about a Pennsylvania connection. We know there's lots of Pennsylvania connections to the marching arts and particularly drum corps, but we're really excited today to have a Pennsylvania connection who is a Westchester University student who was also one of the drum majors of the Cadets. The Cadets being a drum corps based here in Pennsylvania. So I am very excited to welcome in Bailey Karst, the drum major, one of the drum majors from the Cadets. Bailey, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
So we'll get into the Cadets and we'll get into that piece of the puzzle here in just a little bit. But let's talk a little bit of background. Let's set the stage a little bit. Those of us who have this bug for the marching arts, got it somewhere, got it at some point in time. What gave you the bug? What said to you, however many years ago, I want to do this?
All right. So my mom is actually, she was in band in high school. And I remember when I think I was like 9 or 10, she took me to see a drum corps show, which at that was the Buccaneers Classic, the one, but it was held at Alvernia at that time. So like, I didn't really register it when I started to do the show. And I was like, oh, I went to this show. So she took me to that show with a friend when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And I remember seeing it. I'm like, this is so cool. Like, of course you think it's cool the first time you ever see live drum corps. But, and then after that, I didn't really like think anything of it. Like nothing came of it when I was 9. And then I started doing band in 4th grade and I started playing baritone, and I had an older friend who had played the tuba, and a few years later he marched bucks, and he was like 4 years older than me. So when I started to show like any interest in like marching band, he's like, oh my God, you gotta come out. You gotta come out to a bucks camp. I was like, dude, I'm 13 years old. I was like, I've never marched before. And I was like, whatever. I was like, Mom, can I do this thing? And she's like, yes, of course you could do this thing. Like, get in the car, we're going right now. And yeah. So she was like excited for me and like pushed like 12 or 13-year-old me, I forget how old I was, out of the door at Twin Valley High School and was like, have fun, I'll pick you up at 6. So basically my mom, I started playing the instruments, and then she was like, oh, there's this, drum corps thing. So that's where I got it.
So interesting. Then you start in a senior drum corps, the Reading Buccaneers. So essentially all age corps, not what we're used to in the junior corps. So that's kind of an interesting path here.
Yeah. So, I feel like that's a lot of the people around here that do drum corps, because like I auditioned for bucks. I didn't end up doing the season because I was 14. So I didn't end up doing that season, but then the next season, actually, I did march at C2, Cadets 2. So I feel like that's like a lot of the around here, the drum corps, they all start on senior corps because it's like weekend only. You do it when you're 15 years old and you won't be like too overwhelmed. You don't have to spend a whole summer away from home. And
right.
Yeah, it was a great starting spot for me.
So that obviously then, made you say, all right, I have the bug for this by being there and being part of it and say, I want to do this a little bit more. So kind of what was that experience like for you that made you say, okay, this is awesome, but I think I want to go try junior corps?
Okay. So I think what made me want to do it was seeing the Cadets live at Allentown in 2015. Because after that season at C2, my first season, like I didn't really have a great rookie year. So I was like, Mom, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And she's like, yeah, you do. She's like, give it another shot. So around that time when I saw the day season wrapping up, and I saw the Cadets live in Allentown. I was like, I want to do that. Like that horn line, nuts. I wanted to do that so bad. And so I didn't have like a plan. Like it's like I knew when I was 15 when I started, it was like, okay, I age out of drum corps in 2022. So it was 2015 to 2022. It was like I have 8 years. I wasn't really sure when I would get around to it. But I ended up auditioning in 2019 for the first time. So did 4 years at DCA, and I was like, all right, I think I'm ready for the big leagues.
And so, okay, like you had your eye on the Cadets there, kind of right from the get-go. I mean, was that your goal? Like it's the Cadets or nothing? Was that what you're thinking?
Yeah, it's like kind of, I mean, it's not like embarrassing. I guess it's kind of like cute now looking back. But when I was younger, I used to like conduct along with like Kendall Stevenson's videos of her like conducting Rocky Point in the lot. But I was always like, I want to be a drum major at the Cadets. So
Okay.
I was like hell bent. I will not take no for an answer. And I was like, no matter how I get there, I will get there. And like
Wow.
I've been like, it was like, I guess not like rocky, but I like definitely like went off the path a little bit. Like I was like, I don't really know if this is what I want to do, but then I always went back to it. So I was like, I should just keep going.
So, okay, you join the Cadets. I mean, you're not joining as the drum major. Obviously, you're in your first year there.
Yeah.
You're there, and you're okay. You've auditioned. You're in it. I mean, what's that like then? As somebody who like you want to be the drum major, and you are there playing the show. I mean, what's that experience like? Are you just so enamored in being in the show?
I mean, it's a lot of work, like every part of the drum corps, like no matter what part of the drum corps you're in, like it's just like constant work. So honestly, when I was like marching on the field, I didn't really think much of it. I was like, I want to do that one day. And then I was like, okay, let me hit my dot real quick. So it wasn't like, didn't really have time to like think about what I wanted to do. I was always like, I'm going to be here next year, but I don't really know in what capacity. So it was always like that. Like I wasn't thinking that like I wanted to come back, you know, like as a drum major or like thinking about like being up there. I was always just kind of in the game because it's really hard not to be.
Yeah.
Especially when you have like a tuba on your shoulder.
Right.
So yeah, it's like, just like I said, just constant work, really.
So you were then involved in drum corps and DCI drum corps at a really unique time in our history, as we all went through the pandemic. But as drum corps faced the pandemic, which was a whole set of challenges of how do we keep this going? How do we do this? What does it look like? Is it competitive? Is it non-competitive? Will people come? How do you travel with a couple hundred people across the country on buses? When we're in the middle of a pandemic. So what was the experience like for you, as a performer going through the pandemic?
So in 2020, we had January camp and then a February camp in Florida, which I wasn't able to go to because it was all the way down there. It was like a camp. But then March camp got canceled like a week before it happened. We were all like, are they going to cancel it? And then we're like, everybody else is canceling everything. They're going to cancel it. And then they canceled it. So then that all happened, global pandemic. And we just kind of kept going. Like I said, drum corps is like, it's just constant work and like pays off in the end. Pays off so much. But we just, through the pandemic, we did like virtual camps. Like we would like log on and do like a visual class, and then we would have like breakout like private lessons with our teachers, which was amazing because we have like such great brass staff. So like as a college kid, like in a music ed program, I'm like, nice, and like another free lesson because I had my C horn at home. I didn't have a B flat horn. So I was just playing C for like these great tuba players and getting feedback and everything. And I mean, even though it wasn't what anybody wanted at the time, like looking back, it sounds cliche, but like it was nice, you know? And we all still got to do in some capacity what we wanted to. And for me being like a concert tuba player too, it was nice to have that like structure, and to still be able to play drum corps music.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's awesome. I didn't realize that perspective of, yeah, take advantage of this, that, some private lessons from, so, some amazing experts. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So 2022, we're essentially back. Drum corps is back, and the plan is for everything to be normal. And I know there were some corps that experienced some bumps along the way, but I mean, I would say if you look at the overall DCI season, it's incredibly successful, and certainly for their 50th anniversary, a wonderful time to come back. So, what was this like for you as a drum major? Well, maybe let's back up a little bit. So, tell us what that process was to become one of the drum majors for this season.
Okay. So I reached out to our brass caption head. I was like, hey, I'm like interested in auditioning for a drum major position this year if we're like opening the auditions. And he was like, just get a contract on Barry first, which was what I wanted to march. I marched Barry in 21. So I did tuba in 1920 and then Barry in 2021. And I was planning on going back on Barry. And he was like, just get a Barry contract and then we'll talk. And I was like, okay, fine. So I did the November camp on baritone, and then December camp, we did drum major auditions. We did drum major auditions for December camp, and then callbacks were in January. And it was pretty much like wasn't really anything like out of the ordinary. We did, conducting and everything. We talked a lot about leadership, and just really what it took to like be at the helm of a drum corps, even though like it's not just you up there, but it's you and like a group of people.
So talk to us about then the 2022 season, the show. What was this experience like for you, as knowing it's your age out year?
Yeah, 2022 was probably one of my favorite summers, but it was hard for a lot of us because it was a lot of people's first competitive season out. And not to say that like 2021 wasn't a season, because we had a great season in like 3 weeks in 2021. It was amazing. But this was a lot of people's first competitive season. So it was a lot of pressure on people that they weren't used to, and having a lot of pressure on, and if you've been on tour, like it's just pressure all the time. Like, where's your stuff? Where are you going? And like where are you gonna sleep tonight? What's the showers like? What kind of showers are there? I don't know, man. But it was just a lot of pressure on everybody to be on their game all the time. And with such we had a really rookie heavy core this year, just because of how things worked out. Like there was like a 3-year span where there's no drum corps,
Right.
So people come back, and even if they did march in 21, they still wouldn't know what was it? I think 11 total weeks. We had 5 weeks of spring training and 6 weeks of tour. So it's a long time to be just like doing band and being responsible for, especially like kids coming like from high school, being responsible for yourself for the whole summer, for a summer without your parents. It can be really intimidating. And that's a reason that I didn't do it until I got to college. So, and like the first season out competing. And of course there's that added pressure. Like I wouldn't say that the staff never treated us any differently just because it was a competitive season versus a non-competitive season. Like they still always pushed us to what we could do within reason, obviously. But just because it wasn't competitive in 21 doesn't mean they took it easy on us. So we still worked just as hard But in 22 now, you have all these numbers coming at you. And like my favorite saying from the summer that I'll definitely take to when I teach is like, the numbers will change, but the work doesn't. So
that's a
that
great
was
quote.
like a big thing, just like numbers. We have numbers now, and we wanted to be the best we could, and we wanted to bring the cadets back up to where they should be. So it was a lot of effort from all of us, and it definitely paid off. So
Yeah, and such a competitive season, and I think some were somewhat surprised by that everyone came out of the gate as good as they did, every corps. And so how wonderful is that as a way to come back that, and we're back and we are all really competitive. So that means folks like you really had to work hard every day because of that competitive piece. So let's talk a little bit about the being a drum major. So a lot of the folks who listen to this podcast, are high school band students, band directors, and so they may be used to, okay, we do our halftime show and we have one, maybe two drum majors. So the cadets, four, correct? 2020 you had four. So the kind of the main drum major that we all saw that everybody knew and was Kat.
Yep.
And if you go back on the cadets social media, they certainly had Kat was kind of the star of a lot of it, which was fun to watch throughout the year. My favorite was on International Cat Day. There was some posts, specifically about her, which was very cool. But so with four of you, that's different than maybe what folks would experience in a high school band program. So what is that like? What is the division of responsibility, not only from the podium, but to kind of everything else that happens day to day?
Yeah, that's a good question, because people don't normally ask about that or like care about the back like behind the scenes stuff. But okay, so during spring training, we would kind of divide the responsibilities equally. Like waking up the corps, we would go bang on doors with drumsticks. And during spring training, it was pretty easy because we're in one spot. So in terms of Met running, though, me and Kat would stay with the horn line, and our other two drum majors, Adrian and Wes, they would alternate between being with the horn line and the drum line, because the reason that was given to me is because it's just important. It's important for all the drum majors to have that understanding of the battery parts, because it's what they need to be like tuned into. So that's why we spend a lot of time with the battery. But Wes and Adrian were specifically spending more time with the battery because they have more years with the drum corps and everything, and they needed to kind of like get a really good feel of what battery is like. So it was split pretty equally. A lot of the like logistical stuff, not that we really do a lot as drum majors, because that's when we have the admin team, but anything that fell into that category really like fell on Kat, and from there she would delegate whatever she needed help with and everything. But she was kind of like the face of our team, and we were all, I would say the responsibilities were shared pretty equally, but she was like our section leader in the drum majors. So
and then talk a little bit about the on the field stuff. So the conducting, lots of times a second drum major, I'm talking like high school program, is used when the band turns backfield and somebody needs to be conducting backfield, or the woodwinds are on the 10-yard line and somebody needs to be down there to conduct. Drum corps is I mean, I'm sure some of those instances are the same, but it's different because there's so many more moving parts and there's so many more things happening. So what's kind of the division of labor then during the actual show?
Yeah, so this year in particular, I'm not sure if it'll change, but we had two podiums right we had them on the 35s. We normally had them on the 40s, but then we had like pit speakers that we needed to move them for. So up front we had Wes and Kat, and then in the back we had me and Adrian. And it's interesting that you ask. You probably asked for a reason, because we had some pretty crazy drill this year that went along with our show. we kind of explored the field, and I ended up being a backfield corner side one drum major. Not even backfield, like talking like past the end zone. Like I got onto the field, I set up my ladder at the end zone, not even like the goal line. So Adrian was over on side two on the goal line and the corner, and I was on side one. And Adrenaline City, which was like our New York movement, it explored like the upper right and just like the right of the field, so side two. And as we went down through St. Louis Blues, we kind of came forward and used more of the center of the field. And then the ballad was where we went all the way out west to side one, to the back corner. I mean, cool design. I was kind of like getting out over it, but that's why I was in the back corner. And everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're spending your age out as a backfield conductor? Like, doesn't that suck?" I'm like, no, it's the coolest thing ever, because like what other kind of what other backfield drum major ever got to see what I saw? None. I was so happy with it. But I got to hear the horn line blast in my face every time we played the ballad, which was amazing. What a way to age out. But so that's what timing wise, Kat was always in control of timing. Wes watched Kat, everybody else watched Kat. So that's how it went, like timing logistics. But that's the reason we were where we were.
So I was lucky enough to see the show live, and then of course see it. I saw it live in person, but saw it live on video a few times throughout the summer as well. So the show was Rearview Mirror, based on Jack Kerouac, and just what a fun story, and it was just so cool how you all told the story. And I just love what you're saying about what that experience was like from your incredibly unique vantage point to see the show every night and to be part of it. So we should note that you're a student at Westchester University. So you were also in the marching band at Westchester University, and of course in the music programs there, music ed major. And then you also have a minor. What's the minor?
Yeah, I have a minor in youth empowerment and urban studies.
All right, so very education focused. All right, so let's move into the music ed piece of the discussion. I know you're student teaching now in the school district of Philadelphia. How, as you look ahead, what do you take from this kind of the entire drum corps experience into what your future in education, teaching, or kind of wherever you go in education?
I think. So that's like a heavy question. Because it's been my whole life so far.
Yeah.
So it's like, what don't I take? A lot of like the life lessons I've learned. I mean, life lessons if I'm not 22 years old, like I'm still a baby, but like everything I've learned about life pretty much has come from drum corps, which is, it's like scary because I'm done drum corps and I'm about to go into the real world. So like, like it's been all I've known. So a lot of it's just been like pushing myself and like being the best version of myself that I could be in drum corps. It was for my teammates, like my group, for the betterment of the corps that I was in. I would push myself like further than I thought I could go. But I think now it's like, as I go into teaching, it's like always pushing myself for my kids and like my students. So obviously like with a grain of salt, like taking care of myself and everything. And as I did in drum corps, there's always like a fine line, but like pushing the boundaries of like what I can be doing to better myself now for my students. And yeah, I learned a lot of time management. That was a thing that I'm definitely going to take into like my professional career. And I guess just like meeting a lot of different people from like different areas. We had a lot of people from Japan at Cadets. We had Team Japan, love Team Japan. But even like from within the country, it like I would have never met all people and got to talk to them and hear about their experiences and everything. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, other than that, I'm not really sure.
No, well,
guess-
no, you do know, because that was I mean, that in many ways, that I think that sums up what drum corps is. That these things are it's so embedded into what you're doing on a daily basis that you may not realize what here are the things I learned on my summer in drum corps, because it's so embedded.
Yeah.
And I just, I love that, you are pushing for excellence in what you're doing, but I just love then it's kind of in that servant way, because you're doing it for your teammates in the corps. Now you're shifting the idea of doing it for your students, which are wonderful lessons for all of us. But you lived it in drum corps, which I think is just awesome. So kind of what's next? You're student teaching now, but as you look ahead, what are your thoughts for the future? And will you march senior corps? I didn't tell you that one ahead of time.
It's everybody's first question. So what's next for me? I'm graduating in December. I'd like to start a master's program while I work, preferably somewhere around Philadelphia, but I'm never really sure. I'm very much like a you can plan person, but life's going to take you where it wants to take you. So I would like to...
Wait, so did you learn that from the show? I mean, that was kind of the theme of the show in some ways with Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, I really did learn that from drum corps. Like, you can plan all you want, but you know what's going to throw a wrench in those plans? Injuries. Like, I got injured my one year. It went from marching on the tuba to playing in the pit. Like, life's going to take you where it wants to take you, and you just have to ride it. But anyways, so I would like to start my master's somewhere in social work, and just continue to teach and work with kids.
Awesome. Well, I'm so impressed with you, and it's an honor to talk to a Cadets drum major, because what you all do, during a summer tour. I think those of us, a lot of people dip in and see a little bit of it, but it's that you're living it 24/7, and there's a lot to that. I will say you evaded my question of will you march senior corps, so you don't have to answer that, but you can if you want.
I evade everybody whenever they ask that question, because
okay, fair enough, that's fair. All right, I don't know is a good answer. Yes. So Bailey, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us, and we wish you all the best in your student teaching, and then as you head on into whatever is next, which we all don't know what is.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Great to talk to you, and thank you all for joining us on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. We want to thank our sponsor, the Grove City College Department of Music. We will see you next time.